You know, we're surrounded by everyday objects we never give a second thought to. But what if I told you one of the most common things in your house has a secret history that stretches back almost 5,000 years? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible hidden story of the simple bar of soap.
It sounds a little nuts, right? But seriously, think about it. That bar of soap is the end product of millennia of chemistry, global trade, and huge cultural shifts. It's not just some block of fat and chemicals. It's a tiny, tangible piece of human history. So, let's start our journey at the very, very beginning.
All right, our first chapter, an unsung household hero. Before we get to the soap that you and I know, we have to meet its earliest ancestors. And our story kicks off in one of the cradles of civilization.
That's not a typo. We're talking nearly 5,000 years ago. Archaeologists actually found the first known recipe for a soap-like substance etched onto a Sumerian clay tablet. But here's the kicker. It had absolutely nothing to do with washing your hands.
This stuff, what we could call proto-soap, was basically an industrial-grade cleaner. The ancient Babylonians and Egyptians were mixing animal fats, oils, and wood ash to do things like clean textiles, getting wool ready for weaving. They even used it as a kind of medicinal ointment. But personal hygiene? Nope, that wasn't even on their radar yet. Moving on to part 2, the murky origins. Now this is where the story gets a really interesting twist. You'd think the Roman Empire, famous for being so clean, would be front and center in the story of soap, wouldn't you? Well, the truth is way more surprising.
So get this, the Romans, with all their famous public baths, didn't actually use soap to get clean. Their method was to slather themselves in oil and then scrape it off, along with all the dirt and grime, using a curved metal tool called a strigil. The invention of what we'd recognize as true soap actually came from the people they called barbarians, the Gauls. This quote right here really tells you everything about how the Romans first saw soap. The historian Pliny the Elder wrote about it, but not as a cleaning agent. He described it as this bizarre foreign goop, a kind of hair gel that Gallic and Germanic tribes used to dye their hair red. Can you imagine?
So what made this Gallic stuff true soap? Well, the key ingredient was lye. That's an alkali that allowed it to actually foam up and clean way more effectively. It took a while to catch on, but by the 2nd century AD, the famous Greek physician Galen was actually prescribing it for, personal cleanliness. He even rated the Germanic soaps as the best you could get, with the Gallic version a close second.
All right, part 3, from Gauls to Galen. So we're seeing this barbarian hair product begin a slow, steady transformation from a weird curiosity into a genuinely sought-after commodity.
The next huge leap forward happened in the Middle East. During the Islamic Golden Age, artisans, especially in cities like Aleppo, totally perfected the craft. They started using olive oil instead of animal fat, and they created these amazing, hard, perfumed soaps. These were a world away from those early harsh versions.
From there, this much improved soap slowly trickled its way back into Europe. And I mean, slowly. You can see it took centuries for the knowledge to spread through Italy and Spain. It wasn't until around the 15th century that cities like Marseille and Venice became the big soap-making hubs. But even then, this stuff was not for your average person.
Oh yeah, and if you want a sign that something is a luxury good, just look for the tax man. For almost 200 years in England, soap was taxed so heavily that it was just completely unaffordable for regular folks. Being clean was literally a privilege reserved for the rich.
And that brings us to our next chapter, the modern clean revolution. So how on earth did soap go from a taxed luxury item to something in every single home? Well, this is where the story really picks up speed.
Okay, this is the year, 1853. That's when Britain finally got rid of that crippling soap tax. And just like that, almost overnight, cleanliness was no longer a luxury. This one political move completely opened the floodgates for what came next. The Industrial Revolution basically put soap making into hyperdrive. You had these huge chemical breakthroughs, like making a key ingredient from plain old salt, which made everything cheaper. Then you had entrepreneurs like Andrew Pierce creating these high-end, aspirational brands. And at the same time, innovators like William Gossage were figuring out how to make good quality soap that working-class families could actually afford.
And here's a great little piece of trivia for you. When you have mass production, you need mass marketing. In 1882, Pierce Soap hired the famous actress Lily Langtry to be their spokesperson. This is widely considered the first ever celebrity endorsement of a commercial product. So yeah, the history of soap is tied directly to the birth of modern advertising. This whole industrial boom led to the creation of companies that are still absolute giants today. You've got Lever Brothers, which you probably know better as Unilever, and just before 1900, a new soap made from palm and olive oils hit the market. And guesses? Palmolive. The modern soap aisle was literally being born.
Which brings us to our final takeaway here in the modern clean revolution. After this wild 5,000-year ride, what have we really learned?
When you think about it, the story of soap is really the story of civilization. It charts our understanding of chemistry, our changing ideas about health, the growth of global trade, and even, as we saw, the invention of modern marketing. It is so much more than just a simple tool for getting clean.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. The next time you're at the sink and you pick up that bar of soap, just remember that this simple, everyday act connects you to ancient chemists, Gallic warriors, medieval artisans, and Victorian inventors. You're holding 5 millennia of history right there in your hands. So, what other pieces of history are hiding in plain sight?